How's it going, Knicks fans? Welcome back to yet another episode of Fireside Knicks with your hosts Dylan and Ryan. We are finally back on the pod. It's been a minute, but we're really happy to be back and talking about the Knicks in a very good way. They're in the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in me and Ryan's lifetime. We have never seen this team make it this far in the postseason, and we're very excited to talk about it. We're just going to kind of jump right into this. Ryan, first off, I want you to tell me how you're doing first off, and secondly, tell me about the Boston series, because I don't think either one of us expected to be in this position right now.
Yeah, I'm doing phenomenal, and I also just want to say real quick, it is awesome to be back. We're back. The Knicks are in a spot where, as you mentioned, we never thought they would be. But for those who are either coming in from the Instagram, who have been here on the YouTube page, and like, oh my gosh, these guys are back. We really appreciate you guys for showing support to the page. Dylan has done a phenomenal job on the Instagram and has done a phenomenal job on the YouTube and all the socials. And it is awesome to talk Knicks with him again. Dylan, I fully agree that the Boston series, like this was not a miracle. I think a miracle would discredit the Knicks' performance in that series, what they did in that series. But it was definitely a surprise. And the only way they were going to beat Boston, it felt like, was if this team found a way to put it together the way they haven't all year, right? Like this was a talented team, a team that, let's be honest, has a lot of scoring depth. They have Jalen Brunson, who is one of the best scorers in the league. Karl-Anthony Towns is a multi-level scorer. He is one of the most talented scorers in the league as well at the position. And you look at OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges, I mean, these are guys who will average north of 15 to 16 points a game on pretty decent efficiency. And in Bridges' case, he has a pretty good mid-range shot to go with a decent three-point shot. And Anunoby is very efficient around the rim and is a reliable shooter as well. They have a lot of scoring depth. It just felt like they hadn't been able to put that together. Well, I feel like they finally figured out kind of their mojo. They found something. When you look at this Boston series, man, Boston's a tough opponent, and it's not just injuries. Dylan, Jason Tatum went down, and that's unfortunate, and obviously that's heartbreaking, and you don't want that to happen. But he went down when the Knicks were comfortably up in that game, and were about to take a commanding 3-1 lead. Boston would have had to win 3 in a row to beat the Knicks with Jason Tatum. I don't think they were going to do that, and I think the odds of them doing that were extremely low. Jalen Brunson has proved to be a superstar one. Like, I think that you could have argued that beforehand. I think it was foolish the way some people just wrote off the fact that he is a capable number one for a title contender. But this postseason has cemented that for him. The way that Cat has kind of come around a little bit towards the end of that series, the way that Mitchell Robinson has impacted the rebounding statistics and has made a massive impact on this team's ability to get second chance points, which was their bread and butter last year. Dylan, if you remember, like we would talk about this at times last year, their bread and butter was second chance opportunities. You miss, we still get a board, and we're still good. And that they killed the Celtics in that regard in Game 6. And looking a little bit ahead into this Pacers series, that's going to allow them, I think, to do really well in this series if they can keep having that rebound advantage, keep knocking down some big shots, and keep having Jalen Brunson play at the level he's played at.
Yeah, and I really want to touch on the Boston one real quick because I'm glad you brought up Tatum being hurt because, of course, first off, I hope he recovers well. Nobody wants to see an injury like that to anybody. We're Knicks fans and obviously it benefited us, but at the end of the day, you don't want to see a guy get hurt. And Jason Tatum is an awesome player, and I really hope he recovers well. So, prayers to him, and I hope he recovers quick. But as you said, the Knicks were going to win that series, or at least win that game anyway. Okay, they were already going to be up 3-1. They were in command of that game. They were pulling away as Tatum had gotten injured. That game was in the Knicks' hands. Even Brad Stevens said it yesterday in his end-of-season presser. He even said it himself. He knew that realistically, they were going to go up 3-1 anyway. They were going to be in a tough hole. Barely any team has ever come back down 3-1 in a postseason series. It's only happened once in the finals, but in other series, it's only happened like 12 other times. So it's very rare that it's even happened to begin with. I don't think the Celtics were going to do it. I think the Knicks had full control of the series. I think they kind of figured them out, and I'm really glad that they did because, in the regular season, they looked terrible against Boston. Straight up, they were just awful. Yes, they were scoring a little bit, but they couldn't defend to save their life. Now, I know Boston also did have big leads throughout the entire series, and you could argue that the Knicks really got outplayed and they kind of just got lucky a little bit. Maybe, but at the end of the day, the Knicks made the plays that mattered, and that's why they ended up winning those first 2 games on the road. Yes, they went down huge. They went down 20 in both games. It looked like they should have gotten smacked around both times. But they made the plays that mattered down the stretch. They made the shots they needed to make. They played fantastic defense, really. Their defense has looked the best that it's looked all year, by the way, right now. And with that being said, the way it's playing at the moment, I feel very confident going into Indy. I think Indiana is a very good offense. I think they're one of the faster paced offenses in the league, and the Knicks have struggled with fast paced offenses. We've seen it time and time again. But the Knicks defensively seem locked in right now. I don't know what changed between the end of the regular season and the postseason, but they look like a different unit defensively. They've had a very strong defensive postseason. They held Detroit pretty well as well. Detroit did not exactly have the best shooting splits known to mankind. The Knicks just kind of shot themselves in the foot a couple times and had some bad shooting nights, and that's why that series went to 6. But if you really look at the defensive stuff, they've been great. OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges have both stepped up on that side, and Mitchell Robinson has been a massive X factor. And I think that's been a huge difference so far in this entire playoff run. I think without Mitchell Robinson, the Knicks would not be here right now, honestly. Yes, I know the free throws have been a horrible, horrible thing for him right now, and it's brutal watching teams just foul him on purpose to get him to the line. But I think Tom Thibodeau kind of figured out how to get him in there without teams having to do that. I think he's figured out a way to get him on the court enough times to make an impact while also avoiding the hack-a-mitch, the obvious free throw problems. Because defensively, Mitchell Robinson's been great. And obviously he's been great in the pick and roll and stuff as well. He's been huge. And as you said before, the second chance opportunities, that is huge for the Knicks. I mean, the Knicks are not exactly the best shooting team in the world. I know Jalen Brunson is very efficient. Karl-Anthony Towns is very efficient. But, the playoffs are a different animal. It is tough sometimes to have really good shooting nights in the postseason. You need to have those second chance opportunities. And Mitchell Robinson has done that. He looks healthy this time. This is the most healthy he has looked all year since he's come back. He looks great. He looks like his old self again. And I think he's been the biggest difference so far. Yes, Mikal Bridges stepping up defensively is massive, but without Mitchell Robinson, this team would not be in the Eastern Conference Finals right now. And I want to get your input on that because I think Mitchell Robinson has been a true difference maker. I really do.
I'll have to fully agree. I think Mitchell Robinson, when you look at, again, you talk about the defensive component, these double big lineups that the Knicks have been able to run, having Mitchell Robinson out there, having Karl-Anthony Towns out there. Number one, it puts less pressure on Karl-Anthony Towns to be a a rim protector, which I just don't think he's very good at, and he hasn't really been good at in his career. And it allows him to play a little more of a help defense role. I don't have to have, Karl-Anthony Towns be my defensive anchor as a big man. I don't need that. And that is that makes him a liability when you have to rely on him in that regard. Is Mitchell Robinson a net negative on offense? Yes. But he is so impactful defensively. He is arguably, I'd say he's their best defensive player in terms of just overall impact, the role he plays in the offense, the defense, the way that he, just sets up this defense where Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, they can just focus on the perimeter and the wings. They don't have to play this role where they're making up for a bad defensive center, making up for a small point guard. And look, Josh Hart, I think he plays a versatile role for this team, and he's not a bad player at all. Like, I don't want to dismiss Josh Hart and all of this, but it allows you to, when you have the double big lineup, yes, it means that Josh Hart's usually not on the court or whatever that may be, but yeah, you're going to have the bad spacing that you've kind of dealt with the starting lineup, but you're going to have great defense. So it's fine. Like, it can work. Look at OKC. I mean, OKC, they don't have just a litany of dominant shooters. This is one of the greatest regular season teams we have ever seen, and they did it with phenomenal defense, a familiar friend in Isaiah Hartenstein being a defensive anchor, running a double big lineup at times. And again, they don't really have, it's not like OKC is this dominant three-point shooting team. They have good three-point shooters, don't get me wrong, but they make defense and being a great defensive team their priority. Defense in the NBA is so valuable. This is not the NFL. This is not Major League Baseball. This is not a sport where you can be a bad defensive team or even a mediocre one and win a title. You have to be very good defensively. You have to be able to stop other teams. And again, when you have that kind of size, because Bridges and Anunoby are not short either. These are dudes who are tall and play like it. You're gonna kill the rebounding game. I already hit on that point, but when you're killing teams defensively and you're killing teams on the rebounding side of things, you're gonna win. Like, you're going to win. You're going to beat really good teams. And in the postseason, you got a chance to beat anybody. And I think that the way I walked away from this Boston series, Dylan, and I want to know if you share the same sentiment, I walked away going from, okay, this team can beat, a Detroit. They can beat, a lesser team, a team that is like the 6th seed, 7th seed, 5th seed. And now, after beating Boston, they can beat anyone. I don't care who's in front of them. They can beat that team. That's how good they are right now.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. They can beat anybody. Now, I will say, OKC is a different animal. I think what you just said, defensively, they are a machine, and I do think the Knicks could have some problems against them because, the Knicks don't exactly run like a, super fast-paced offense. They don't exactly move the ball a whole ton either. They kind of focus solely on a lot of one-on-ones and stuff, and I don't know if that's going to bode well if the Knicks and the Thunder were to match up in the finals, but, obviously we got to worry about Indiana first before I could even think about that. But aside from the OKC Thunder, I think the Knicks can handle Indiana. I think they can handle Minnesota too if they match up with them in the finals as well. I really think the Knicks are at a spot right now where they figured it out. Sometimes it just takes a team to get hot to really get far into the playoffs, and the Knicks are that team right now. They are hot. They ended up beating Detroit in a very hard fought series. I think it kind of woke them up a little bit because they came out against Boston with some, like a chip on their shoulder. It looked like they were really trying to prove something, and they showed it. They had all those close games, which, obviously I hate close games in that situation, especially when you're missing a lot of shots, and that's why it's close. But I think the Knicks really proved in Game 6 that they can dominate a team when they really put it together. Because, yes, I know Boston was missing Tatum, I understand, but the Knicks just pummeled them in Game 6. I mean, that was dominant from start to finish. The defense was amazing. That was the best defense I think I've seen them play all year as a unit, to be honest with you. And offensively, they look good too. I think really, though, I want to touch on this because you said Mitchell Robinson is arguably the best defender on the team. I'd have to slightly disagree only because I think OG Anunoby is a little more versatile. I think he's great in the perimeter, and he's also been very strong inside as well. We saw in Game 6, he made those 2 blocks that pretty much set the tone in the first quarter and for the rest of the game at that point. OG is a pretty big guy himself. He's 6'8", he's pretty big. He's got a long wingspan. He's willing to get physical. He's aggressive. I think he's going to play a huge role in this Indiana series. I'm interested to see how he's going to guard Pascal Siakam because I fully expect him to be on him, as well as Halliburton a little bit at times too, but I also expect OG to be getting Siakam quite a lot in the post, so I'm interested to see how that matchup's going to go, and also because Indiana is a shooting team. Those guys like to shoot threes. Miles Turner shoots a lot of threes. Siakam has a decent outside shot. Their guys like to shoot. OG is going to be on the perimeter a lot. I think he's going to be active. I think he's going to give Indiana fits. We saw it last year when we played the Pacers in the second round. OG was giving those guys problems. The Knicks were up 2-0 when he was playing, and then he went down, and that's when the wheels fell off for the Knicks. He was kind of the big difference maker there. I think OG Anunoby is going to have a huge series against Indiana, but in all, I think the biggest X factor, I know I said Mitchell Robinson before, but I think there's another X factor that I have to touch on, and it's Karl-Anthony Towns. I have to, because let's be honest, guys. Against Boston, he wasn't that good. He wasn't. He had a great Game 6, and I know he had a couple decent games, but overall, it was not the series to remember for Cat. It wasn't. Defensively, he was not very good, which, he hasn't been all year, so I can't expect much to change on that end. But offensively, he really struggled. He only had 2 threes up until the Game 6, I believe, and he was, not really taking many threes either. He was playing a lot of his spots in the post, which he's a decent post player, but he's a three-point shooter at heart. I want him to let it fly. In Game 6, he was letting it fly, and look how open the floor was for the Knicks. They were kind of just able to get whatever they wanted because Cat was actually taking some threes. I really didn't even care if his threes weren't really falling like that. At least he was taking them. At that point, I just wanted to see him take them. So if he takes a lot more threes and he's a lot more involved in the offense, the Knicks can really blow these guys out. They can. Indiana is not exactly the best defensive team. They're not a bad defensive team, but they're not like, this world beater on defense either. They're a team that will run you off the floor offensively. That is the Indiana Pacers' strength. So the Knicks need to realize that and turn the defense into offense because, the Knicks are not exactly the best offensive team, but they can be a very good defensive team. And if you play good defense, you turn that into offense, and then there you go. You kind of just, will walk them out of the building at that point. And if the Knicks can, like I said, if they play good defense, sky's the limit. They really can beat these guys in pretty easily fashion. But, before we do wrap this episode up, I do want to, do a prediction, and I want to give Ryan an opportunity to do it first. So, Ryan, do you think the Knicks are going to beat the Pacers 1? And if so, in how many games?
So, to start things off, I believe the New York Knicks will beat the Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals. So, I'm predicting the New York Knicks to go to their first finals in our lifetime as well. I believe they'll do it in 7 games. Like, I've been grappling, and we talked a little bit about this before the show, like 6 games, 7 games, like how deep we're going to go into this series. I think it'll be a 7-game series because I think Indiana will play the Knicks tough. We also kind of we've played Indiana before. They are a team that is capable of hitting threes from kind of anywhere, and that's kind of the one scary thing when you have a big lead against a team that is very 3-point aggressive, is that if they catch fire for 2 quarters, they can win the game. And that's scary. That's scary to know. So I think it'll be a 7-game series, but I think the Knicks will come ahead and win this thing. The pieces of data that are kind of really encouraging me here is that Mitchell Robinson is probably, like, getting Mitchell Robinson back is one of the biggest additions the Knicks have gotten late in the season. And, like, his impact in this postseason, the Knicks are 16.9 points per 100 possessions better with him on the court this postseason. Their defensive rating, or excuse me, the opponent's offensive rating when he's off the court against the Knicks is 115.4. When he's on the court, it's 103.9. Like, we go from, like, a team being an above average modern NBA offense, like a good NBA offense, to like an offense that wouldn't cut it in like the 2000s. And even and then I kind of thought maybe, well, the Knicks are sacrificing offense when he's on the court. The Knicks have a 110.5 offensive rating with him off the court, which is below average. It's not very good for the Knicks. And they have a 115.7 with him on the court. They score more when he's on the court. It's kind of crazy. It really, it's wild. And the reason for that, look at the rebounding difference. Opponents have a 53.8% rebound rate with him off the court and a 45.4% with him on the court. Teams cannot get boards against the New York Knicks when Mitchell Robinson's on the court. It is a staggering difference. Staggering. The Knicks go from a 20.8% offensive rebound percentage to 36.5. He's a huge difference maker. So I think in this series, the Celtics series, the Knicks figured out, oh my God, Mitchell Robinson's like, he's super impactful. I think they figured it out in this series. And unlike in the Boston series, Indiana can't do this hack-a-Mitch thing. Boston tried it. Indiana can try. It's not going to work out for them. He's going to have to play these games. They're going to have to let him play out these minutes. The only thing that gives me any sort of anxiety is that the guy that is giving you this big boost is also a guy you can't really rely on. Like, you could go up 2-0, and then in game 3, it's Mitchell Robinson's listed as questionable, and suddenly your whole series is thrown into a loop. Kind of like how it did last year, where you're up 2-0, things are great, you're going to Indiana, you just kind of have to take one, and suddenly you put yourself in suddenly you've lost Anunoby. You don't have Mitchell Robinson. Josh Hart's banged up. Jalen Brunson's dealing with a fractured thumb. Like that's the kind of stuff that scares me, because Mitchell Robinson is this guy's made a big impact, but I can't predict injuries. I'm not going to predict injuries. I'm going to predict this team gets the job done.
Yeah, and before I do give my prediction, I want to touch on the injury thing, because they've actually been very good with injuries this year, honestly. And I think that goes to credit to Casey Smith, their new, one of their new trainers or whatever, their head trainer. He has really done a good job to keep these Knicks in shape, and it's really been a huge thing, because, last year we all know their injury situation was just awful. I mean, they lost, like, pretty much everybody by the time they were done. By the time their season was over, Brunson had the fractured hand. Randall had the shoulder injury. OG had the hamstring. Mitchell Robinson had the ankle. Josh Hart had the abdomen. Bojan Bogdanovic had a few ailments going on. There was too many injuries for a team to really handle. The fact that they even pushed the Pacers to 7, despite that situation, is remarkable. It is. The Knicks deserve a lot of credit for that. But at the end of the day, we don't do moral victories here. We don't take that anymore. We want to beat these guys, and we want to reach the NBA Finals for the first time in our lifetime and the first time in 26 years that they've done it. So, to give my formal prediction, I think the Knicks win this in 6. I posted this on Fireside Knicks on the Instagram yesterday, so if you don't see that, make sure you guys go follow that first off. But secondly, I posted that on there, and I truly believe it. I do. I think the Pacers are a very good team. I think, I honestly, the toughest games of the series are going to be in Indiana. That crowd is electric. Those guys are there. They really enjoy watching the Pacers play. They really want to see the Pacers succeed. They also know the history between the Knicks and the Pacers, especially from the, early to late 90s. So there's going to be a lot of history and a lot of energy in those buildings. And I think taking both games in Indiana is going to be a huge challenge. I think the difference that made it with Boston was that, Boston was never that great of a home team to begin with. I mean, they were a good home team, don't get me wrong, but they were better on the road in the regular season. One of the best road teams in the regular season of all time, actually, too. So I wasn't extremely surprised that the Knicks took at least one on the road. Now, I was very surprised that they took both in Boston. That was very unexpected. Was not expecting to do that at all. But the fact that they took one, I wasn't exactly surprised about. I think the Knicks, kind of came in there and kind of had a good feeling about it. But going to Indiana is a little tough, man. Those guys are going to be rowdy. They're going to be loud. We all know they're going to all be wearing yellow. It is going to be an intimidating building. But playing in Madison Square Garden is also going to be very intimidating for Indiana. So I think really it's going to be a very enjoyable series. I think there's going to be a lot of physicality. I think there's going to be a lot of close games. Obviously, for my heart rate and my blood pressure, I want the Knicks to crush these guys. But we all know realistically it's not going to happen that way. The Indiana Pacers are a good team. They do belong here. They did just beat the one-seeded Cavaliers, who were one of the best regular season teams that we have seen in quite a long time. So they're on a run themselves too. It isn't just the Knicks here who are on some unprecedented run. The Pacers are doing the same thing. So it's going to be a tough series. It's good for basketball, though. I think this is the type of series that basketball fans want to see. I don't think they wanted to just see all the one seed steamroll everybody. I think the fact that we have some parity this time around is great for the league. I do. And I think really any four of these teams left in the playoffs have a realistic chance of winning the finals. I really do. I think there is a realistic chance. But for this series, I think the Knicks take care of them in 6. I hope they take care of them in 6. I think Jalen Brunson has a fantastic series, honestly. Going from Ausar Thompson and Drew Holiday and Derek White guarding you to Andrew Nembhard is a massive difference. I know Andrew Nembhard is profiled as a decent defender, but Brunson absolutely torched Nembhard last year. He shot like 68% or something like that when Nembhard was guarding him in the playoffs last year. So Brunson has him figured out. Okay, so I think Jalen Brunson's going to have a phenomenal series. I think Karl-Anthony Towns will finally have a much better series too. After not having the best series against Boston, I think he takes a step forward this upcoming series. And what you said about Mitchell Robinson, as long as he stays healthy and as long as the rest of the team stays healthy, the Knicks should win this series. I think the Knicks have simply more talent. Pacers are a deeper team, but I think the Knicks have more star power. But I do think this is a good place to wrap the episode up. We really hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's really good to be back on here. I know it's been a very long time since we've done a podcast on this channel, but we're excited to be back talking about the Knicks being successful, and I'm glad to be doing this again with Ryan. We haven't done a podcast together in at least over a year now, so been a very long time, and I'm happy to be doing it with him again. Make sure you guys follow us on all of our social media channels. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, of course, this YouTube page that you are watching the video on. You can follow me and Ryan's personal Twitter accounts. They're right there above our heads. And we'll see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks. Peace out.